When I was young, my mother was also young. I mean, she had us in her 20s, and she was beautiful and smart, and she was also really, really awful to herself sometimes. She was really good at telling people how great they were, but she could meticulously tear herself apart in front of a mirror. And as her only daughter, she often did that in front of me. Now, I don't think she ever would have thought that she was doing anything wrong. I think she thought she was doing something good. Like, if she was saying how fat or gross or awful she was or felt, that was motivating her to, not eat cookies or do something else in her mind. And if she was telling me in the same breath how beautiful or perfect or don't worry I was, she was, keeping the scales even somehow. But, things seep out. Like, when I was 8, in a very helpful moment, she offered to have my ears pinned back, which I think I said something to the effect of, like a dog, because our neighbors had a Doberman, and I remember his ears being wrapped up. So there was that. And when I was probably 15 or 16, I was flipping through the Parade magazine, and I actually still love Parade magazine as a Sunday paper, but there was a Beverly Hills diet. And the Beverly Hills diet, all I can remember was that you ate a half of a baked potato with mustard on it for breakfast. That's all I remember. And her reaction was, we should do it together. We did. So at some point in my later teens, I said to her, you have to stop talking like this in front of me, please. And she was pretty shocked, like, I've never said anything bad about you, or who knows. But she was actually pretty good after that for a while, and I went to college, and she went on with her career, and 10 years later or so, she suffered a massive stroke. She was 54 years old. That is not fair, and that is fucking young. But for all the things that it took from her, you'd be surprised at what your brain can keep, almost like reflexes. So she didn't have one of those strokes that, you might hear somebody say, like, they were young and they were able to gain back, just about everything, and they ended up learning piano, or they just didn't like the color green anymore, or some weird thing. That is not her case. She's significantly disabled, and she had a long way to go. So when she, I may laugh, that's what could happen. When she was going through speech therapy, to get her to say one of her first words, her speech therapist put her in front of a telephone that was just like the one in her office, because she worked in the same hospital where she was being rehabbed. And I had been with her for a few weeks, and she hadn't really said anything except maybe no. And she picked up the phone with she had one hand that worked, and she just said, hello, in the most straightforward Margaret voice you ever heard. It was perfect. It was just this knee-jerk reaction. She could just say it. And when her occupational therapist said, bring in things she likes, I brought in her makeup. And we set it in front of her. And she put on her face. And she touched every bit of things that were in her little makeup bag and put it on perfectly. Knee-jerk reaction. Just like nothing had happened. With one hand. She obviously did it with one hand. And after a really long physical therapy session, I was with her, and I'm pushing her back in her wheelchair to the elevator. She sees a huge mirror, floor to ceiling. In my mind, it was like a funhouse mirror, like it was absurdly huge. And we had been sort of avoiding mirrors, you can imagine why. And she points to it. It's like, no way. And honestly, it's because she looked like shit. Like I knew this was going to be bad. And partially she looked like shit because I had trimmed her bangs the day before and I had done the shittiest job. I was planning to figure out how to even them out by saying like, oh, ha, funny, there's like a stray hair, and totally chop them all on one side. It was going to be bad. So, but there was no arguing with her. I pushed her in front of the mirror. And she sat there for a second. And she hadn't put a lot of sentences together at this point. I don't even know if she had at all strung more than maybe one or two words. And so she said a full sentence, the first one that I could remember. Still fat. Oh. Still fat? But tube. She had a feeding tube. Okay. So, at the same moment that I was thrown back to feeling like 13 years old and wanting to smack her, I couldn't believe that this was her body's way of finally saying a fucking sentence. Like now, this is what you're going to talk about? But that was her. That was the way she wanted to express herself. And as my father says, he's like, they took a lot from her, but they couldn't take that out. You know, the things that you're left with are the things that are normal to you, I guess. And I knew that when I had kids, I would never talk about their appearance. And then I had kids. And of course you talk about their appearance. And of course you talk about your own appearance. You say how nice they look in their holiday outfit, or you say like, oh, mom just couldn't find an outfit to wear, and you slip up. So I swore to myself again and again, I won't ever talk about their bodies. That's off limits. I'm not going to talk about my body in front of them. I'm not going to talk about their body in front of them. Until I did. My child, one of my children, struggled with anxiety and at one point reveled in her string beanness. And I stayed away. And then reveled in that she was eating more and gaining weight and wasn't that great. And that day, because I was happy too, I flipped up. And I said, I'm really glad you finally have a butt. No. And like that, I was down a sinkhole, swirling around, like everything was gone. I knew as soon as I said it, I was just like floating away. And I started imagining her wearing baggy clothes from now on and strolling across some mediocre college campus because she wasn't going to apply to a good one. And being in bed with her first love. And I'm saying, I love your ass. And her saying, oh, really? Because my mom never thought I had a good one. What a bitch. Mom, was all she said. And I covered it up pretty well. I I was joking. You know how funny butts are. I was just joking about butts. And she exhaled and exited. Something I think most daughters do to their moms. I usually slam the door somewhere in there. But I didn't want to let it go too long, so I walked in behind her and I said, I don't get to say that to you. I don't get to say that to you. I am here to protect your body. That is my job. That's probably my number one job, and I don't get to say that to you. And I'm sorry. And she said, for what? I said, well, for the butt joke. So yeah, it was a bad joke. It wasn't very funny. Said, yeah, I know. I was about to say butt like 4 more times. And I luckily stopped myself. And I think in the end, I knew at least to stop myself from my own knee-jerk reaction. Thank you.